Cappy. It covers everything. We're just talking primarily about the oil issue now, but there is much in the report in those 36 pages that will leave your jaw reaching for the desk beneath it. It's quite amazing. And when you consider the track record and the past predictions that have come to pass, it becomes even more amazing to read. I guess that's the safest word, the most sanguine word I can use. The new report, one of the segments, Terra, quaking, baking, drowning, flaking, astounding. And
yeah.
That was...
well, we've got to characterize it somehow.
Quite a role. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how else to do it. You did it perfectly. This section, of course, does deal with Terra, meaning the Earth, and it has to do with the oil. 19 months out. This is interesting. That's from onset, of course, in April. Now, the earthquake, with this much of a displacement of material, be it gas or liquid, from a cavity or a massive mother lode down there, has to yield at some point to the tremendous pressure upon it placed there by the ocean. Now, the earthquake
that
could be...
assumes, though, that it's a reservoir. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we may be able to dispute that because there's a lot of indications from the linguistics, but also that we analyzed after the fact, that suggested that BP knew that they were after a primary source. And a primary source, by definition, are these things that the Russians found. Very deep. They're not connected to reservoirs. They're an area from which oil seeps out and is then collected in these giant capstones that up to this point we've usually tapped by drilling through the capstone to these little collected areas. But this
is source.
So this is the primary source. So we can think of it this way. Usually, up until the time that the Russians discovered this, 6, 8, 10 years back, they started really getting active in this. Maybe 20 years ago they were thinking about it. But until the Russians, we'd always been thinking of the Earth as a giant coffee pot, or the old percolator style that had the little glass thing at the top of the lid. And up until then, we'd always just been drilling through the glass to get our oil inside the little collecting area that was driven up there by the pressure. Now, the Russians and now BP have sunk their wells all the way down inside the central pipe in the percolating thing. So it's not really a reservoir. It won't really slow down, ease up, or any of that.
No, the pressure is not diminishing. The PSI has not changed, apparently. We're not getting reports on that
it will.
either.
In fact, it'll likely increase because of the other things that are going on, which is the energetic interaction between our planet and the sun, and the return current and what goes on then, which is the return current is what we usually call the hurricane season, because it's very much like a alternating current in electricity, where we would use a commutator to vibrate the electricity back between positive and negative and thus be able to shove it through lines with less resistance. There's the similar effect that occurs between the Earth and the Sun. When the Sun sends us lots of electricity, and in a brief period of the year, we send back all of the electricity that we haven't really used, if you want to think of it that way. And during that period of time, we have the counterflow of winds, the shifting of the trade currents, the creation of the great storms, the hurricanes and the typhoons, as well as this high-energy particle exchange that goes on with the Sun, which coincidentally also increases planetary pressure and usually results in earthquakes anyway. So now that the Sun's a bit more energetic, we're getting more energy from it, we have a higher volume to turn back. All of these things are interrelated. BP just happens to come along and jab a main artery of the planet when the planet's in a state of high blood pressure.
Right.
Make sense?
Well said. Yeah, the electric universe.
Correct.
David Talbot and Wal Thornhill's work. Fascinating how you synthesized that and pulled it into the conversation. And
see, it goes all the way back to Maxwell and, in the 1830s, and it was even known by the Greeks in 300 AD. There was this marvelous little exposition about the interaction of the vibratory energy between the Earth and the Sun, which basically encapsulate what we just discussed there. Right. And so BP has come along, and I think knowingly, until proven otherwise, I'm going to assume that they're rat bastards. and that they did know what they were doing, and that they chose that spot on the planet to drill specifically because they wanted to create this particular effect for somebody's nefarious reasons. Now, that's my mental bent, if you will, and I've been taught by universe to think that some of these guys at the top are rat bastards, and well, okay, so they proved it to me. We might as well continue with that. It's worked so far.
Right.
Now, I think that they did that, and that they were after this kind of an effect, and it apparently has worked, and I think they know what's coming up this summer as a result of what they've done. That will be an escalation of it all through July and August that I think is going to be tied to the 12 days of torment for the Obama administration. I think it's going to get a lot worse at the end of July due to probably another high-pressure incident, if you will, that's primarily caused by the sun, but wouldn't have been a problem if BP hadn't jabbed their big needle into that particular vein, or into that particular artery.
20-inch needle, which is being abraded as we speak. There's probably not much left of it. We do know it has failed at the subsurface level somewhere down there between the surface and 30,000 feet or however deep they went. That's clear. That's why they dropped Top Kill real quick. As soon as they started to successfully shut down the flow, well, it went right past the rupture in the pipe down below the seabed and came right up and out cracks, and they said, well, we've stopped this real quick. So that was probably a surprise to them. The pipe has failed. It is failing. It's essentially useless now. There's nothing much that can be done with it. They're siphoning, they're trying, but it's a marginal issue. Eventually, with that much PSI, what's left of that casing is probably just going to blow right out of there.
Especially since it's not really oil that's coming out, but it's this precursor material from which oil is percolated. Yeah.
Right. Okay. July and August in the South, the heat, the humidity, the horror of it all, where people can't even, they're so lethargic and soporific. They can't move. And they're going to have to move, and a lot of them are going to die. We got a 40% obesity problem in this country. You're talking about medical deaths earlier is absolutely correct, but the general physical health and well-being of the populace
isn't that good to begin with.
No.
Yeah. It's the same kind of Bataan Death March kind of an issue. The Bataan Death March was a terrifically horrible thing. However, the way it was portrayed by the U.S. propaganda machine was inaccurate. The reason primarily that the Americans or the developed world prisoners died at the hands of the Japanese was because we were used to trucks. Our people were only used to walking 300 miles a year. The Japanese were used to walking 1,100 or 1,200 miles a year, so it was no big deal to them. So they thought we were faking it when our guys fell over of heat exhaustion after only 20 miles in a day. They just couldn't believe we were that weak. And it's because of the technological shift. So you're quite correct. We now have a population that at some point is 40 or 50% nebbish. And that is people whose main job is being cube farmed. The potential for these people to exist in a diaspora situation is not very good if the system breaks down to the point where there's not effective transportation, and yet they still must move because of life-threatening conditions. However, as we're seeing, the powers that be are in a real bind. They're not going to come out and say, evacuate, 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 simply because the minute they do so, everything for them collapses. And I cannot, in my wildest imagination, picture any of the current crop of Congress critters as having the courage to stand up and sell the rest of their future down by telling the truth about anything.
I agree. Totally agree. All right. What is this, 12 days?
The 12 days of torment, we get this weird thing about the Obama administration. It was our first specific Obama-oriented archetype that came up. We'd had Bush-oriented archetypes way early in the process of the Bush guys coming on, and they started off as Bush Co., and eventually the corporations left Bush, and it whittled itself down to just the Bushistas, the true believers. Now we're getting a situation that's sort of the reverse of that for the Obama guys, and that is that what we're calling the Obama-monians, because it's going to be all these people that used to be and perhaps still are entranced or glamorized by, that is to say, have magic over their eyes by the Obama administration. Change we can believe in, something new is going to happen instead of usual, business as usual. The sheep being led out to be sheared or slaughtered. So the Obamamonians are going to get a comeuppance this summer because they're for the 12 days of August 1 through, or actually probably July, late in July, but certainly through the first solid 10 days of August. But 12 days in total, they're going to go through some kind of weird torment where no decision works. It's going to be Rita Katrina 100 times worse for the Obama administration guys trying to make decisions based on the circumstances. And it may be that the Gulf gets that much worse that much rapidly.
Looking pretty grim now.
Yeah.
When are these 12 days projected?
I'm sorry?
The 12 days when?
August 1 through 12th is basically, it'll fade off around the 11th or 12th.
Huh. Well, all right.
Doesn't mean they make a good decision. It just means that there's less pressure on them at that point.
Got it. Okay, back in a minute we're going to talk about data gaps with Cliff as we continue. Okay, let's get right back to Cliff. I still am toying with this 20 to 40 million people in a diaspora on the run, literally, and a lot of them are not going to have vehicles because they'll run out of gas, and then the gas stations will run out of gas, of course, before that. Freeways, it's going to be a mess. What will the feds do? Will they try to order homeowners or people who are leasing homes or have room to take people in, take them in, and where will they draw the boundaries? And what kind of incentives will they try to give them? How will they con them, bribe them, reward them, give them a tax break? What? I don't know. The whole thing is crazy.
And, it's going to get very insane, It produces social chaos within our numbers, and that's why we see the chaos is an interesting term, especially within our linguistics, because we can get chaotic situations that express themselves in two separate ways within the data. One is a scattering of particular linguistics across a wide area, so much sort of a dispersion of an entity type. The other is actually a collection of data elements all clustering around a central theme as we have now, and within that we see a contention between the positive and negative, or an escalation between negative and constraint at numeric levels, and that's actually what we've got now as a description of chaos, where we have negative pressures for behavior and then constraints on the ability to react or actually have any kind of an effective response. That's why we were able to say ahead of time that we were going to see three separate instances of wide-scale discussion of the ineffectiveness of the federal government at dealing with what initially would be a regional disaster, but would lead to the actual dispersing of the peoples throughout the continent. And we also were able to, out of that, extract the numbers which led us to the conclusion that north of 40 would be